Hi everyone, welcome to another speed paint video featuring this watercolor and ink artwork, which is actually an old artwork from 2017. I never uploaded the video because the time that I created this, I wasn't feeling super motivated with YouTube anymore, so I didn't upload any videos regularly during that time, and I basically just went on a very long hiatus. But it's finally here. I'm finally making the video. This is going to be a long video, so if you want to draw along with me, then grab your art materials and let's draw together. This artwork also took 4 to 5 hours to make, and that doesn't even include the research and idea generation that I had to do for this piece. So I'm going to be answering a bunch of questions, or pretty much 4 questions, because I asked my followers on Instagram back when I first posted this artwork to post questions. And there were a few questions that they asked, but they were pretty much all the same. So I compiled them and I narrowed them down into 4 categories or 4 main questions. And that's what I'm going to be answering and talking about in this video. So I have put timestamps in the video as well in case you are interested to skip to those sections where you want to just listen to me talk about those things, or if you want to actually listen to me talk throughout the entire video, you are more than welcome as well. Before we get started, I am so excited to announce and to point out that I have a new avatar and I have a new logo for my social media. In case you missed it, it was the intro to this video. I have been playing with intros to my videos, but I wasn't really happy with anything that I was doing. But this one, I'm finally happy with this. I created the avatar ages ago and I wanted to share it so much, but I felt like it wasn't ready. I wanted to update my website as well before I put it on any of my social media channels. With that said, I did update my website. I also updated my online shop, so they are listed in the description box below in case you want to check them out, because this artwork is actually available as an art print on my online shop. So as soon as this video goes live, I am having a 20% off sale of everything in my online shop, whether that's art prints, originals, or art prints of my Zodiac artworks that I created in 2019. I really like those artworks, but unfortunately, I never filmed them because I created them during the time when I was on hiatus from YouTube. So I was just drawing for myself and I wasn't filming anything that I was drawing during that time. But I really liked how they turned out, and unfortunately, I can't really share just an image here on YouTube, but they are on my Instagram and they are on my online shop in case you want to check them out. So like I said, they are linked in the description box below, and you get 20% off with anything that you purchase on my shop, and the sale ends at the end of September. So if you are interested in that, like I said, it is linked in the description box below. I am hoping to add more prints and more products in the future, hopefully stationery, something cute. So if you are interested in that, stay tuned. I also have a sign up link for my newsletters on my website in case you want to stay updated for any shop updates or new product releases or new art or new videos. Then you can sign up to that on my website. And once again, I'm having a 20% off sale on everything in my online shop, so please check it out. First off, talking about this artwork, the concept behind it, and how I achieved the transparent effect similar to a double exposure or long exposure photography style. So this artwork was created because I read about this local art competition on the newspaper and I decided to enter it. So we had to create an artwork based on the theme of ebb and flow. And during this time, I started brainstorming ideas because obviously it was an art competition. I wanted to submit something that I was really proud of. And I didn't take it lightly. I started working on it days before the actual deadline. And I was brainstorming ideas, I was doing research on what ebb and flow means, and I was trying to relate that to myself as well as to my emotions because I was also really big on exploring my emotions and trying to create a visual artwork for my feelings. So, with my research, I found that ebb and flow means that they're two phases of the tide or any similar movement of water. And from this, I started to kind of just brain dump of things that came to my mind as soon as I knew that meaning. So, ebb and flow, coming and going. So, I had things like being opposites or contrasting elements. And what's contrasting elements? Black and white, or a recurring pattern of coming and going, this movement to it. And it's usually used to describe the tide or water movement. So it's a cycle. Then it started to evolve into the movement of water, this back and forth and constant um, ebb and flow of water being linked to a passage of time. So then I started thinking past, present, and future. And then all of these ideas kind of just linked together because there was this collision of black and white creating gray, or the collision of past and future creating present. So, two different ends of the spectrum creating something that's in between. And I wrote down my thoughts and ideas in my sketchbook, which was actually such a good habit that I had back in 2017. I don't do this anymore, but I wish I did because it is actually such a great way to document my process. If I didn't have this sketchbook where I actually wrote down in journal form the thoughts that I had for every artwork that I was creating, like every finished artwork, then I wouldn't be able to actually talk about this artwork 3 years after I created it. So looking back at this, it was very nostalgic, and I would totally like to bring it back into my workflow. So fingers crossed. I basically just I doodled ideas. Like, for example, I had this Venn diagram, which ended up influencing the artwork that you are seeing now on the video. And these doodles don't even have to be elaborate. Like, it's just a Venn diagram, but it actually captured what I was trying to create. So, two circles converging and creating something in the middle, like black and white. Past and future are those two circles. And I started linking that to something that's a little bit more me. So, who you were is your past, who you want to be, your future, and who you are now, your present. And that's where my mind started going. So, as soon as you brainstorm, obviously, like, there's just this idea after idea after idea that happens in your head, and you kind of just roll with it. So I went towards that direction because I was liking it, and I explored artworks. I researched for artists, for things that also explored the idea of past, present, and future. And I ended up with images that struck inspiration. For example, I found this image or this painting by an artist named Anna Razumovskaya. I'm so sorry if I butchered that. But she had this beautiful painting where she used three figures, or it's basically just the same person, but repeated throughout three times in the painting to depict rhythm and movement. And that's when I knew that I also wanted to use three figures in my artwork as well. Also, because it just tied in with the idea of past, present, and future, three phases of time. Three is also a very popular number when it comes to literature, dates all the way back to the mythical times, and it's also very popular in art. It's just a beautiful number, and it's also my favorite number. So that's how I decided that I wanted three faces in my artwork. I also looked at long exposure or double exposure photographs because I wanted to kind of represent my Venn diagram in a portraiture form. And that's when those kind of photography styles came to mind, and I started researching more about them. But unfortunately, that media is not something I have any experience with. So I got scared with the concept of the Venn diagram. I started to kind of back away from that idea because how was I going to achieve a long exposure photograph style with watercolors? I just didn't know how to do that. I felt like the idea that I had did not match the skills that I had at the moment. So I was scared. I didn't touch that idea for a while, and I decided to try and explore other ideas. And I did have other ideas as well. So, for example, there was this idea that I had where the past, present, and the future were connected by a single thread. And the idea of the red string also came to mind. So, I decided to try a continuous line portrait because that was gaining popularity back in 2017. And I wanted to see if it was something that I could use. And I actually liked some of the sketches that I did in my sketchbook. I thought it was also a great way to communicate movement and flow, as well as connection between the three phases of time. And I ended up creating an artwork for it. I think I have the video somewhere in my folders, but I didn't really like how it looked. And it wasn't so much the idea, but it was more of my execution. Like the colors didn't look right. You can see it on the screen right now. I'm not super happy with the impact it has. I feel like it just doesn't evoke the feeling I wanted to evoke. I don't know, but I do like the idea. I would actually like to explore that idea once again, like in the future, with the skills that I have now, with techniques that I have now, as well as with the new media that I've been experimenting with. But either way, the fact that I actually created that idea, it became the jumping board to the final artwork that you are now seeing on the video, because the ideas that I felt like were my safety net weren't really working for me. I knew that I had to go with the Venn diagram idea, even though it was something that I was scared of. So I started to refine that idea even more and really just go headfirst into it. So I decided to remove the continuous line that I was supposed to put in front of all of the faces because I wanted the Venn diagram and the continuous line together, but I thought that would just be too much. So remove it and then basically just focus on the overlapping faces. Because in a way, it was actually quite strong, the fact that the faces were overlapping. So I ended up with the three faces, and I used myself as a reference. So this is basically a self-portrait. And in the end, this artwork became very personal for me, the fact that they were self-portraits, because I started exploring my own past, my present, and my future, and trying to create a pose that I feel like represents that. Although I kind of just went for something generic. So the past is looking down because, it's not always great, but I'm glad it's done. The present is looking towards the front, towards you. It's quite confronting. So that's definitely what I wanted. And the future is looking up because it's trying to be hopeful that the future will be better than today or yesterday. And that's how it started. That is basically the concept of the artwork. And I'm pretty happy with it. I actually really like it. And this is something that I've definitely forgotten before I started looking back at this sketchbook. Like, it's always been one of my favorite artworks to date, ever since I created it. But I sometimes forget the idea that I had when I created this. So it was really nice to actually look back into my sketchbook and to also create this video to share the ideas that I had with you guys. When it comes to achieving the transparent effect, I definitely needed time to think about how I was going to execute this effect with traditional media. Like I said, I was scared. And this was 3 years ago, so I don't know if my memory serves me right, but I feel like I did actually have rejected trials of this painting. I'm pretty sure this was not the very first time. Like, the video that you're seeing now is not my first attempt at this artwork. However, like I said, this was 3 years ago and my memory is not that great. So we're just gonna say it's not my first attempt. I tried it once at least and it did not work, but I made notes of my mistakes and then I revised that onto the next time that I tried. But to sum it up, basically I first started with a sketch of the 3 faces with 3 different colored pencils, and you might have seen when I started I already had the base sketch or the clean sketch done on the watercolor paper because I didn't want to sketch directly on the watercolor paper or else I would make mistakes, and this was something I knew I did not want to make mistakes on. So I tried to be very cautious in my process with this. And I also made sure that when I started to actually draw on the watercolor paper with the pencils, because I was going to shade with them as well, I made sure that it was very light because I wanted the pencils to show, but also not to overpower anything. So they would just kind of blend in with the watercolors, especially once I started layering the paint on top. And once I was happy with the pencils, I started layering watercolors, making sure that each layer actually dried before another layer. So each layer contained either a wash with some slight shadings here and there. This also allowed me to build up the colors and the shading very slowly, but also very surely. That made sure that nothing was too overpowering, nothing was too dark, and it also maintained the transparency of the watercolors with each layer. And once I was happy with the shading of the 2 faces on the side, I started shading the middle face a lot more because obviously I wanted that to be the main focus. However, I still made sure that the paint was relatively translucent because I didn't want to lose any of the layers that I had underneath. I wanted them to show through as well. So with the water to paint ratio, I was using a lot of water, not as much watercolor pigments. That way the watercolors were still very translucent, and this ended up creating a soft and delicate look to the artwork, which is actually something that I'm not really into. I feel like during that time my artwork was more on bold contrasting colors. I really liked black, but with this one, because it was soft and delicate and because it was transparent faces, I knew that I couldn't use my signature black line art during that time. So what I did was I still had to add line art to actually make the features pop. So I watered down the ink for the line art. That way, instead of actually creating black line art, I was creating a light gray. And that brought out the details that I wanted to pop without actually making that line art too overpowering. And in a sense, it blended with the watercolors. And it was just this nice harmony that I felt like I created with the materials and the techniques that I applied to those said materials. So that's pretty much how I created this artwork. Just lots of layers, lots of patience, and lots of thought, as well as trial and error, because I'm definitely a firm believer that if you create an artwork and it doesn't turn out the way that you wanted it to, you made a mistake or anything like that, you are definitely free to recreate it again. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time you do it. So if it has to be a trial and error process to get to the point where you really, really like it, then so be it. And that's basically what I did with this artwork. And overall, I'm really proud of this artwork. It is one of my favorites. And the fact that I created this 3 years ago and I'm still happy with this artwork and I'm not embarrassed by it at all is actually a pretty big deal for me because I do have other artworks that I've created that I'm just like, I don't really want to show it anymore. Yeah, so I'm really happy with this. I feel like this was the peak of my creativity. And after that, I just started going a different direction. I started exploring things such as colors, which I wasn't super confident with back then. I used to use just a lot of monochromatic color palettes. But after that, I started exploring colors that I was uncomfortable with, like greens and bright yellows and bright reds and bright blues. So I started doing that. And I also started exploring different media. My focus shifted away from exploring my emotions and exploring concept art. I didn't really want to do concept art after this. I wanted to kind of do something different in a sense. But I feel like this artwork is definitely an accumulation of all of the artworks that I've done before, the years that I've tried to capture my emotions in an artwork, to come up with a concept that I feel like translates my written journal entries, trying to use watercolors, practice with watercolors, experiment with watercolors, try different techniques, things like that. I feel like this has definitely been an accumulation of all of those things, and like all of those things led me to this one artwork. And hopefully one day in the future I can use the new things that I've been experimenting with and I've been learning to create another artwork that I can be proud of even after years of creating it. So this leads us to the second question about my evolution as an artist and any struggles I have. So if you've been following my YouTube channel and social media, you know that I've definitely been around. I sound like I'm 1,000 years old, but I have had this YouTube channel for ages. And before that, I was sharing my art by blogging. So I guess I've always been trying to share my art and document my art journey, whether that's through writing about it or making a video out of it. That's always something that I was interested in. So I started creating art with colored pencils, Copic markers, and then I moved on to watercolors and ink, and then I started gouache, and now I am actually exploring digital art. So my style has definitely evolved and it's changed so much, and it's still changing, especially since I'm exploring digital art now. So it's constantly being influenced with whatever I'm into, and it's changing and it's changing, and it's definitely been a journey with my art. And I think the one thing that I actually struggle with a lot, which I talked about in another video, and I will link that in the card section, is dealing with my own insecurities with art and popularity, as well as like feedback that I'm getting, as well as lack thereof of new art that I'm sharing. So I know a lot of people prefer my old art compared to my experimental art, which doesn't really focus on concepts. Like I said, it focuses more on me trying to get outside of my comfort zone when it came to colors or when it came to a material. And I guess the fact that the reception of those kind of artworks weren't as great as the reception of artworks such as this one, for example, or my previous artworks, it's definitely been quite discouraging, because I guess I'm sharing art that I feel like is still a work in progress. Like, obviously, I want to create art again that explores my emotions and explores my feelings, because that's just something that I do enjoy doing. But I want to have new skills, and I want to have new colors and new materials that I have knowledge and I'm confident in using, so that when I do have these ideas or concepts in my head, I feel like I'm well equipped with techniques and new methods that will allow me to execute those ideas much better. And maybe that was the wrong approach. I don't know. But that's something that I've obviously done. And I haven't created art based on concept in years. So I've been creating portraits based on reference images because to me, that's more of just practice. And that just allows me to experiment a media without putting pressure on myself to create something very original or very creative. It just allows me to focus on, the colors or the medium that I'm using during that time. So in a sense, I feel like I was sharing works in progress, and I feel like people weren't responding to it as well as, for example, artworks like this. When I posted this again on Instagram, it definitely got more engagement than any of the things that I've posted before. And I know that you're not really supposed to use social media likes as a definition of self-worth, but it has considerably affected the way I look at myself as well as the way I look at my art. So I'm not always exploring my emotions and putting some deep meaning into my art. Sometimes I just like to draw pretty things, and sometimes I create art that has no meaning. It's purely beautiful because, in my opinion, I enjoy it. And it is something that I struggle with. Like the fact that I'm not getting the same feedback on those artworks as I am with this sort of artwork, it affects my self-esteem and it discourages me sometimes, but I am determined to keep going and to keep experimenting. I am determined to also try new things and keep exploring things outside of my comfort zone. And even if I have to share something that is a work in progress or is just a practice, or it's not super creative, it's not nothing new or anything like that, it doesn't have any deep meanings, then I will still keep doing that because that is currently what I'm into. That is currently part of the journey. And hopefully, I guess my goal is one day to create concepts and create work that is an accumulation of everything that I explored. So it definitely takes time, and I will still continue to share art that I create because, like I said, that is a part of my journey. So if you are interested in my art journey, then definitely stay tuned. I have been sharing my art for 10 years now, and I would definitely like to continue sharing my art for another 10 years and maybe another 10 years after that. The last question is about art exhibitions and if that makes you a true artist. And I would actually like to know what you guys think about this topic because I don't have much experience with art exhibitions or with galleries. But I mean, like I mentioned before, I did create this artwork for an art competition hosted by the local community gallery. There was a $10,000 grand prize for the first place, and I think another prize for the second and third place, and they were going to choose 10 finalists, and all of their artworks were going to be exhibited in the local gallery. And that was my driving force. I wanted my art displayed in a gallery because during that time and years way before that as well, I felt like once I get my artwork displayed in a gallery, that was it. I made it. That made me an artist. And my stance on that has definitely changed. I feel like that dream is slowly dying because there's other avenues and other things that I can do to establish myself as well as my art, to share my art to other people and to reach an audience. And social media has definitely helped with that. So for me, where I currently stand is I feel like an art exhibition or a gallery show is not the only thing that defines me as an artist. There's also the rise of social media artists who are able to make a living and to reach an audience without the help of galleries. So that's kind of inspirational. That's also something that I would like to do. I don't have much experience with galleries, but I do have a very limited amount of experience. And from that, I had to pay a gallery to display my artworks on their online shop, or to like promote my artworks in their online shop. And if I wanted my artworks to be displayed in their gallery in person with other artists in a group show or something like that, then I had to pay another fee. But if I wanted my own solo show, then I had to pay a much more expensive fee. And I guess to end that short story, I didn't end up displaying my art in a gallery. That just left a pretty bad taste in my mouth, even though I know that might not be the case for every gallery. But after that, I just decided to not focus on that, because I was trying to get my artworks in galleries, and that was something that I was trying to establish for myself. But after that experience, I decided against it, or I decided it was going to be a pretty low priority for me. That instead, I was going to try and focus with my social media, or try and establish myself with my art. But also during that time, I was just dealing with a lot of frustration and insecurities with YouTube, as well as time management. It was just a crazy time during that time as well. So I was also not focusing on social media and not focusing on my art and not doing anything, basically. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, even though I have said that a gallery show is not going to be the thing that defines me as an artist, it is still a really good tool to help me reach a different kind of audience, a different audience that I might not reach with social media. So I'm not neglecting that at all. I'm just saying that I want to use the platform that I have now, which is pretty much free for me at the moment, to establish and try see where it takes me. But if the opportunity arises for a gallery show, or if in the future I decide that I really want my artwork in an art exhibition, then I will definitely put in the hard work. I am willing to do that. I am willing to put the time and effort into it to make that happen, as well as, for example, join more art competitions. And yeah, so I guess that basically ends my video, which was super long. I haven't made a long video in ages, but let me know if you don't mind these kind of lengthy videos. I'm also hoping to make more sketch with me and real-time videos, which will be long videos, but they might be shorter than this. They might be longer. I'm not entirely sure. That is for future me to decide. But I hope that you guys like this. I hope that you like the artwork. I hope that you like the Q&A part. I know I talked so much. I feel so tired and exhausted from talking so much and very breathy. But yeah, if you did like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share, and leave some feedback in the comments down below. What would you like to see in the future? Would you like to see some of my old artworks, which I haven't shared here on YouTube, but I might actually have video footage of? I don't know. I will have to check. But basically, my goal for the end of the year is to have weekly videos. Once again, I want to get back on track, and I have been trying, but I've been also failing to actually establish a schedule for myself. I might actually have a poll on what day you guys would prefer me to post, because that is something that I don't actually know. But yeah, for now, however, in order to find out when I upload next, definitely subscribe and push that notification button so that you are updated with any new videos that come your way from me. Also, feel free to check out my online shop. I would definitely appreciate it if you checked out my website, if you just browsed, if you signed up for a newsletter, or if you purchased something, because everything is 20% off at the moment, and it ends at the end of September. So yeah, that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next one.